Hello and welcome back to the Scottish Rugby Podcast. We've had a bit of a break.
A few weeks off, Al.
A few weeks off, Mossy. You been away?
Yes, a couple of weeks down the south of France with the family, which is amazing. But we're back into rugby now and looking forward to bringing the podcast to everybody again for the coming season.
Brilliant to see many of the podcast listeners at the open session last week at BT Murrayfield as well. I think you were chatting to a few.
Yeah, got a few questions saying when's the next instalment, so here we are. A lot to obviously look ahead to this coming few months and thereafter. So as always, we'll look at all parts and departments of Scottish rugby, on field and off field, and we'll look ahead to the season structure and international, club, age grade, women's, sevens, the whole thing.
And hopefully have a bit of fun along the way.
Gregor Townsend, Scotland head coach, great to have you here in St Andrews. We're here at the home of golf. Now I know you are a keen golfer, but how good is it for you and all the players and management to be here at such an iconic venue?
It's a special place. I remember coming here as a player back in amateur days. We used to have weekend camps here because it tended to be better weather in winter, so you got to train on good pitches. And then it was a tradition that was kept on in professional days. Andy Robinson used to bring the team here, and I always felt that you got a lift coming here. It was a different venue, so change of scenery is good just to keep the focus and keep the energy levels up. And then when you look at the facilities, we're in a wonderful hotel. The facilities at St Andrews University are world class, from the training pitch to the gym area. We feel very welcome here, whether it's through the public or the people we interact at the university and the hotel. So it's a good week that we're together. So not only building closer relationships, but having more meetings to improve our rugby side and obviously work hard on the field.
And you've moved the guys around a wee bit in the summer, the week out in Portugal as well. It must be important, I suppose, even to keep the minds fresh, because it's a long pre-season in a World Cup year, that you give them different environments to be in.
Absolutely, and we're going to be in different environments come the World Cup. We're going to be moving from venue to venue, so getting them used to the fact that we will be moving to hotels and what that involves of a new roommate, getting ready to pack your bags, but also just getting that mindset that if you come to a real quality venue like here or in Portugal, that everything is set up for you to train hard, to bring out the best in that short period of time. Most teams, or every team I'm sure, have the goal of getting to the World Cup being the best prepared, the fittest, and being able to play their best rugby right from the start. So getting the camp right that pushes our players, makes them get to that place as quickly as possible is what we set out to do. And not only have we been in Portugal and here at St Andrews, we've visited different parts of Scotland for public sessions. So with a real successful couple of days at Inverness, we're going to go to Glasgow and in a week or two time, and have a train camp at Largs and also at Scotstoun. So that's important too, that more of the public get to see our players.
You talked about the different venues you've been to, Gregor. We're now into Block 2. What's the differences between Block 1 and Block 2 and going forward? What as a coaching group, what are you looking to get from each block?
Well, Block 1, we didn't have the whole squad right at the beginning. So the Edinburgh players came in first. Then we were joined by Glasgow players, a couple of players playing down in England. Then as we got through Block 1 and our final week was in Portugal, we had the whole squad. So players like Greg Laidlaw, Sean Maitland, whose seasons had lasted longer than anybody else's, they were given more time off. So everyone was together in that final week of Block 1, and we believe that it's better to have done 2 training periods and give the players time off in between, because of the demands that we place on them and the fact they're going to be away for their families, those that do make the World Cup squad. We thought that 2 weeks off together would freshen things up, and it has worked well so far. The players came back in looking forward to come back into camp, but also in very good condition. As we go through Block 2, we introduce more rugby. The focus goes from working hard but also improving tactically. And now we're 2 weeks away from our first game, so we have to get that focus towards how to win a game of rugby. And the base will always be hard work and the fitness work we've done, but how we execute our plays, how we react in certain situations, that has certainly been more of what we're looking at in Block 2.
As a coaching group and as a management, how is it a challenge to keep the guys enthused, especially maybe evenings in the hotel? What is it you do out with the rugby to keep the guys maybe entertained? I know Mike has his challenges, Mike Blair does his challenges, but what other things are you bringing to the group maybe away from rugby?
Well, there's things that we intentionally put into the week we believe will create that energy around the squad, will bring people closer together. And then there's things that the players set up themselves, either as a whole group or just in smaller groups. I think that this week saw the final of Love Island, so that has been a very good occasion to bring the squad together.
Who's the big Love Island fans, Gregor?
Well, I went to Ali Price to ask him who was going to win Love Island the other day. So he said he hopes it was Greg, and I believe it was Greg. So Ali would have been happy. Some of the players are trying to tell me they don't watch it anymore, but certainly last year on tour and our tour of North America and South America, that was something that the majority of the squad like to do, come together and watch that. So that's kept them entertained.
What about the management?
The management, Mike Blair, definitely, he knows everything, and Matt Taylor. So really? they say it's because their kids watch it, so they know everybody.
Mike's telling lies. These kids don't watch Love Island.
Yeah.
He's always been a fan.
And you mentioned Mike's little challenges. So we don't do them in every team meeting, but we had a really good one the other day, which was a game of snooker. Little mini challenges of one player taking another player. It tends to be a back against the forward, gets the room supporting each of the player, half the room obviously supporting the back, another half supporting the forward. It just brings energy levels up to then take on the team meeting and then take on the rugby session that follows. We're lucky in the places we visited, there's lots to do. So Portugal, with the weather, it was nice to enjoy that warm weather and relax around the pool. Here, I know the guys are golfing on their day off, or some of them might be putting. And we played a game of cricket as well on Ely Beach, so that was something that we put in place that we believe the players will have some fun and enjoy something different.
This is all building towards the World Cup, but before that, there's 4 games where you can put out some teams, Greg. You can just see where you are after all this training. I'll open this up to the table as well, though, Mossy as well. When it comes to these 4 fixtures, World Cup friendlies, we'll call them, or warm-up games, what's it like as a player to play these games? Is there a different feeling to these games, nervousness? What does it feel like as a player, and also, Gregor, for you as a head coach?
As a player, you're desperate to play because you want to reward yourself for the hard work you've put in the weeks before, and then you want to basically put a marker down for what you can achieve. And certainly when I was involved, there was different numbers. I think we only had 2 prior to 2011. I think 2 games, and there was 3 games prior to the other World Cups I was involved in. And at the 4's a lot. That's the first thing I say, home and away, but it brings a lot of good challenges. I've got to be away in Georgia and away in France. So the heat, the travel. There's a 60 turnaround from the away game in Georgia to the home game versus Georgia. So simulate a wee bit of the kind of the pressures you'll be put under in the World Cup as well. But ultimately, it's an opportunity to prove what you can do and prove the hard work and the dedication of the massive block of pre-season gives you, and it gets you work together, doesn't it? Most of the guys haven't played since probably April, May, some of them, and I think that there's as much excitement about the internationals coming because, as you say, you've not played, you're desperate to show what you can do. The thought of injury never really crept into my mind. I know it's maybe in the public persona a wee bit, what if you get injured, what if you pick up a knock, but it certainly never crossed my mind when I played because you were so desperate to perform well.
Agreed. It was never injury. I think in these games, though, the idea of it almost being a trial, is it more in your mind than it would be at any other point, and that you've done all kind of 8-10 weeks of hard work, and ultimately you're looking to try and get that seat in the plane to go out to Japan. So I think that brings an added pressure, an additional pressure.
But when you were on the field, did you think of that?
Not on the field, but in the build up to the games,
up a wee bit
definitely.
On
Trying
the
to
field,
work out
what
what
like anything else.
Like Gregor's got his idea, like he'll have an idea of his 31, but I assume, Gregor, there'll be people who have the ability to play well in those games and push their way into that as well. But ultimately, as a player, you're looking to gather that knowledge from the coaching team so you can go out and show up well. I think there's more to it in a pre-World Cup games than there is in a Six Nations games or an autumn Test series.
Yeah, I think from a player's perspective, when we announced the team to play France away, they'll want to be playing that game. They won't want to miss out. There's competition for places. As Chris mentioned, you've done the hard work. You want to see that out transferred into a game. Not everyone's going to play in those 4 games. We've got a squad of 44. There's only 31 go to the World Cup, so it's not going to help those 31 if they only get 1 game. Now, the likely scenario is that the majority of players will get 2 games, some will get 2.5 or be involved in 3 games. But given that we do have 31 players going to the World Cup, I don't think it would be great for the players' preparation to play 4 test matches, unless we deem that's right, because maybe they're coming back from injury or maybe they need that game time. But for the majority of the players, it will be a couple of games. So that's a couple of games for them to be in the best position possible, first to be selected in our final squad, but also then to have that confidence in themselves that they're ready to play against Ireland.
Again, from a player's perspective, do you think the players need games to feel as if they're match fit? Depending on all the practice they've done.
I would say yes, just at this time of the season. The Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere approaches to the World Cup are totally different. We have Southern Hemisphere on the back of Super Rugby season and now into the Rugby Championship, so they've been playing lots of rugby. Northern Hemisphere, your first game of the season is a test match. We play France away. That doesn't happen any other year than World Cup year. As I mentioned, you're probably only going to have 2 games before you play the most important game in the last 4 years, which is Ireland on September the 22nd. So to have that match practice will give you assurance, confidence that you've got a game under your belt. Ireland, you can take that on confident in how you've played, the cohesion that you build up and connection with your teammate. That is more enhanced playing a proper game than just in training. And I used to think maybe the Northern Hemisphere teams are a slight disadvantage because they've not played games going to World Cup. But I'm now thinking we're at an advantage because we have players fresh. We've had a real focus on our fitness. We've been able to do a lot more detail than we normally have going into a Six Nations. And currently, as I reach for the table to touch some wood, we have a lot of players available because it's the beginning of the season. We haven't had games, and the injuries that you pick up in games obviously happens more during the season, more as you get into Six Nations.
How much will you push the players in the next couple of weeks and build up to the first summer test as far as training is concerned and the live aspect of it? Will you be playing mini games within those training sessions to try and make sure they're ready for the first test match?
Yeah, so we've built up the contact over the last week or 2. So that goes from controlled contact in terms of the drill and maybe there's a bit of protection to tackling. Next week we will look at putting that in more uncontrolled situations, so more of a game type situation where maybe we play 10 minutes where it's the same as a game. And we need that before we play France. We need the players to have tackled when it's one-on-one, when someone's running full at them, and it's not just in a straight line activity of 4 tackles on your left and 4 tackles on your right. So most of the players will get to experience that. There are some players that won't be involved in that first game for reasons of pure selection, but also where they are in their programs. Players that have came into the training camp later, so maybe their contact and their focus of when they come back to play will be delayed a week or two.
Just going back to the Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, it's really interesting how the Rugby Championship started over in the last 2 weeks, 2 rounds of games. Have you seen anything new or different, or do you get the feeling maybe teams are hold structures and strategies back ahead of the World Cup? Or
I'm sure some teams will. I think I've watched South Africa. They're playing very similar to how they played in November. Especially their defence, they're bringing real line speed.
Isn't it?
Yeah, and they were doing that in November. They're obviously better now. They've just had more time to adapt to that new way of defending. The teams have been rusty, I have to say, and that's normal. Like the first games that we'll play won't be perfect, and there have been a few errors in the game so far, but they'll just get better the more they get playing together.
Mostly, you were mentioning earlier on that France are doing something a little bit different with their squad as far as the Rugby World Cup's concerned.
Well, just as far as I'm aware, they've announced a 31. So they've announced a 37, but it's 31 plus 6. So, and this was maybe probably 4 or 5 weeks ago, they announced 31. Is that their final squad, or is there room for the 6 reserves? I'm not quite sure, really.
What I read was that it was 31 plus 7, which is unusual. Most teams, if they go to 38, which is a low number, they would call it a 38 and not let people know who the final 31 are. They have mentioned, I think, if players' conditioning levels don't go to reach what their standards are, then those 7 players might come into the mix. It's worth looking at, definitely. I don't think any team before has ever announced a 31 as early. So it could be genius. Those players know they're going to World Cup already, so they can go with confidence. And the 7 players in behind will still have the motivation that there should be injuries. I think that'll be 4 test matches they're playing as well in August, and it's very unusual if you make it through 4 test matches without picking up at least one injury.
I suppose they can work in combinations from the very beginning. You did the open training session a week last Friday at BT Murrayfield at 2,000, over 2,000 there. And every question, or not every question, but a lot of questions I was getting was the teams that you'd selected. You had 2 distinct 20, 21 man squads. Is there any thought in that? Are you already looking at combinations, looking ahead to certain games within the World Cup or the summer test where you're trying things out? And are the players aware of that? No,
at times you are. At times we've got a team in mind for the France game and or both France games. Now that's coming quickly. We've got to have in our minds who we want to play in that game or those games. So sometimes when you put those training teams together, it's already looking at combinations for that France game. Other times it's random. We play games every day at training, and that's sometimes games of 7, sometimes 3 teams of 14 when we have 42 training, or 2 teams of 15, which is obviously that's normal rugby, with players subbing in at various stages. So you're going to get different combinations when those people come in off the sideline. Players will look at each team that you put up, today's training team, and go, hang on, I was in team 1 yesterday, now I'm in team 3, what have I done? And I was playing with this guy yesterday and he played all the last 6 Nations games, so does that mean I'm in or out? So normally if you were in the team with Mossy, you knew you were in the right team. Yeah. That's what I remember. Every now and again Mossy still has to run for us, so Still doing well? It usually makes a couple of line breaks.
It's fear.
You've not been called on that, Al, because we've got lots of cover at second row. I'm ready. Like, my boots are always in the car, Gregor, you know that.
All this hard work, Greg, is building towards the World Cup in Japan. Have you played in Japan before? Have you had experience playing rugby in Japan?
No, I've been there twice, just in a sort of reconnaissance capacity. Never played there. Did play the last World Cup I was involved in was 2003, and we played Japan in Townsville. So Scotland have played Japan on a few occasions in World Cup. So they gave us a fright that day. They were leading with about 20 minutes to go, and they're an excellent team. And obviously progressed a lot since 2003, but showed in the last World Cup that they can be a match for anyone.
And when you look at rugby in Japan in general, what do you make of it? You talked about the international team coming on leaps and bounds, but out with that, what's your thoughts on overall Japanese rugby?
Well, I was really impressed with the popularity of rugby in Japan, both at club level and international level. On my last visit, I went out to Japan just after the end of the Six Nations, and I watched a Super Rugby game. So Sunwolves played the Hurricanes on the Friday night, and the following day Japan were playing a selection from the Hurricanes, so Hurricanes B team. So the Friday night game was a sellout. The Sunwolves had already been announced as this is going to be their last season in Super Rugby, and they were still creating huge crowd numbers and really good atmosphere. Japanese supporters are really passionate about any sport they follow, whether that's the football team, baseball or rugby, and they were really behind their team. The next day, about an hour and a half journey across Tokyo to a small ground and a game that hadn't been advertised. Again, it was a sellout. There was queues of people getting into the ground to watch a Japan squad training game. So that said to me that come World Cup time, the whole country is going to be behind Japan. And they know their rugby. They're very knowledgeable about their rugby. So I wasn't aware of that I knew rugby was important in universities, and the top league, the professional league, attracts some very good players, but I wasn't aware that the whole country understood the game and were really behind the national team. So no, they'll have great support. They're hosting a World Cup, so it'll mean a lot for the country to do well, and it'll be a noisy stadium when we play them in Yokohama in that last pool game.
It's an incredible start from the last World Cup. We've maybe talked about it before, but under 1 million people watched the Japan-South Africa game in 2015. Japan won that game, arguably the biggest upset there's been at a World Cup, and 4 or 5 days later when Japan played Scotland, there was over 20 million people in Japan alone watching that game, and that's 4 years ago, so it's only going to have grown since then. I've been out a couple of times as well, Mossy and I have been out, and the enthusiasm for this pending World Cup's incredible. I think they're going to fill stadiums and buy into it, and part of what is important from Scotland's point of view is that we work closely with Japan, with Nagasaki in particular, to make sure that we've got the support there. The slightly ironic thing is that we played them in the last pool game, and that could be a crucial game. Who knows what's happened in the build-up before, but the travelling support and the support over there will be massively important for the team.
Yeah, and the Japanese supporters are very respectful of opposition. Yeah. I watched the Japan-Fiji game at the weekend, and Japan won that game pretty comfortably. They played well, but when Fiji scored a try, the crowd are all giving the Fijians a round of applause. Like, they appreciate the good rugby that the opposition showed, and the reception we've had in Nagasaki, the reception we've had when we visited other places in Japan. They seem like they're keen to support Scotland and get behind Scotland. Obviously not when they play us, but before and hopefully after, I believe that they will be behind us.
I saw bits of that game actually, the Fiji game, because Fiji have just beaten the Maori, and the 2 test series against Maori, won one, lost one, but rotating the squad quite heavily, so there's a lot of depth in Fijian rugby, a lot of talent, but the Japanese style of play was understandably quick, but some of the offload, some of the high skill level to take Fiji on at Fiji's game and come out on top was pretty impressive, wasn't it, on the weekend? Yeah,
and they decided to keep ball, but I believe for a couple of reasons. One, they didn't want to kick loosely to the Fijian back three, and also they believed their fitness and their skill work would put the Fijians under pressure, and it did. They moved the ball from their own half. They were really quick to support the ruck and create quick ball, and at times they offloaded in the wide channels. They're a really dangerous team. They play, or they aspire to play like we do, a game of rugby that's about speed and skill, based on huge effort. So we know we're going to have a huge challenge when we play them.
13th in the world rankings. I had a look. So we're 7th, Ireland 3rd. This is our Pool A, our World Cup Pool A. Scotland 7th, Ireland 3rd, Japan 11th, Samoa 16th, and Russia 20th in world rankings. France are 8th, obviously first opponents of the World Cup warm-ups in Georgia 12th. So I think World Cup rankings, you can't read too much into them. I believe that anyone can beat anyone on the day in the top 12, 13, but the reason that the guys are 1 or 2 in the world are because they can do it consistently. But I do think every game Scotland can win, but ultimately the opponents can win it as well. It's a dangerous way of kind of looking at rugby, but the talent of the players and the fitness and the strength and condition of the players in the top 12 nations is good enough to surprise any upset.
I agree, and it's great for the supporter. Now that when you go into a Rugby World Cup, it's not guaranteed which 2 teams will go through. Your teams that are ranked 3rd, and sometimes the teams that are ranked 4th can easily upset the top 2 teams, and that's brilliant. It's due to the players that are playing at these teams, but also the coaches. Like, there's some very good coaches coaching Japan, Tonga, Samoa, Georgia. They've professionalised, organised the way these teams are playing. See, USA now are playing great rugby. They beat us last year, so it'll cause a lot of intrigue. It'll mean that teams can't relax through the pool stages. The traditional top 4 or 5 teams in the world. For us, we have very dangerous opponents in Samoa and Japan that we've played before in World Cups that have been a real handful, and then the added challenge with Japan is we're playing the host country, and also Russia. Like the Russia game, Russia are not a team that we've played that often. I can't remember the last time Scotland played Russia, but they're going to be well coached, really good coaching team. They have a huge goal in this to make a statement in the World Cup, beat a team that's ranked higher than them. And the way that game falls means that we have to use our resources really well, because it's 4 days before we play Japan.
And the travel, and a different part of the Japan. One of the positives of playing Ireland first, in many ways, going back to what you said earlier on, you're both in the same kind of preparation phase, because you're both Northern Hemisphere teams. So maybe by the time you play the Southern Hemisphere teams who are more into their season, you've had another couple of games under your belt.
I agree, and you also want to play the team that's ranked above you early on, before they maybe get some momentum and rhythm. Playing them early on too, it'll be warmer conditions, so as we go through the World Cup, it should start to get cooler. So 2 Northern Hemisphere teams playing against each other in potential 30, 35 degree heat and humidity will be challenging for both of us, and very different than when we normally play Ireland, which is either at the Aviva or at BT Murrayfield. You
talked about the world-class coaching teams there. One element which maybe not as prevalent as it used to be is the fact that, take Samoa for example, they'll have the longest period when their players are together than they'll have at any other time. So a lot of these teams, the 8-10 week build up gives them a bigger boost than you might see in some of the top performing teams more regularly.
100%, and the ability to be in camps and be organised through the camps, ability to play warm up games and improve from them, gets them up to speed from what they have as natural ability, whether Samoa or Fiji or all these countries we mentioned, and that should benefit them. We saw with Fiji in November, we played them first up, and we got a good win against them, but we are very aware that was the first time they came together. 2 weeks later they beat France in France, so it showed you just with 3 weeks together, learning together, getting the detail right, they became a team that was playing closer to the potential, and the potential of Fiji, Samoa, Japan is huge.
Some of your World Cup memories as a player or as a spectator? I mean, I was lucky enough I played in 4, but some of my strongest memories of the last World Cup as a spectator, watching the one in 2015. But what does, say, Rugby World Cup to you, what springs to mind immediately? Is it playing, or is it supporting, or is it being involved?
That's an interesting one. I think less coaching, I would say, more spectating and playing. I've not been a head coach in a World Cup before. When I was assistant coach, it didn't end that well, so probably that's why it's not a memory at the forefront of what I think about. But the World Cup, I'm old enough to remember the first one and getting woken up during the night watching Scotland v France and Scotland New Zealand, and this was such a new thing for rugby to have a World Cup. To be at games in 1991, to be behind the posts when Adam's dad had a conversion penalty in the semi-final, England-Scotland. That I was 17, 18 at the time, so I knew a lot of the players that were involved there. To miss out in 1995, being injured in my last ever game for Gala, that was really disappointing, because the 95 World Cup was the breakthrough World Cup, the breakthrough tournament, to go to South Africa with all the changes that were happening there, and South Africa being back in the World Rugby fold. There was a World Cup of Jonah Lomu. That was a World Cup that transformed the game and changed it to being a professional game only a few months later. And then to play in 99, 2003 were great memories, so more from spectating and playing. And the last World Cup, I remember going to Scotland, Samoa at St James's Park, then jumping off my sofa in the quarter-final with the rest of the family, and showing what, like, that reminds me of what World Cups can mean to the nation. Like, everybody's behind the team. We're lucky that we have the Six Nations every year, and it's such a big tournament for all the countries involved, but especially ourselves. But then the World Cup comes along, where people that don't often watch rugby are cheering on Scotland, as we were that day in our living room.
You mentioned as well that Doddy Weir, I think, is the only player that's got 2 tries against New Zealand in the World Cup. Is that right, Gregor?
I think so. That's I do remember them. And 95. Doddy ploughed over for a couple of tries.
He doesn't talk about it that much. He normally keeps it to himself.
Yeah. Well, Doddy's so self-deprecating that when he does, he's a brilliant after-dinner speaker, and he'll talk about his record for Scotland, and he'll mention all the defeats, and then he'll just sneak in at the end, oh yeah, but I did score 2 tries against New Zealand in a game. But he was an excellent player, and like, to score 2 tries against New Zealand is
that was an
amazing.
exciting game as well, wasn't it? Did Rob Wainwright no score a touchline, a long range?
That's
right. Touchline, and then it was pretty. I can't remember what the final score was. Maybe look it up, Jamie, if you've got the details there.
I don't have my
book.
We've actually.
It was a cracking. I was in Canada on a school rugby trip watching it. A brilliant game as well.
And the one player who made a huge difference, maybe scored 2 or 3 tries on his own, was Jonah. And at that stage, you couldn't tackle him one-on-one. He was so good. The defences were a lot narrower than they are today. He'd still break tackles today. He was a phenomenal player, but back then it was, if the ball was on to Jonah on the wing, then it probably guaranteed try. But if you'd taken him out of the game, it was very equal. And Scotland have had some really good contests with New Zealand over the years. So the quarter-final in 87, New Zealand were by far the best team in that World Cup and won their games easily. Scotland probably was the second or third best team in that competition. It was just unfortunate they played New Zealand in the quarter-final.
Fourth playoff in 91. 99, we played New Zealand in the quarter-final. Scored a couple of tries in the second half, and give that was a real competitive fixture as well. And we know if things go well for us, we will make if we make the quarter-finals, we're playing New Zealand, South Africa, Italy, so we could meet New Zealand again.
I just want to come back quickly, because you mentioned Doddy. We all know the great work he's doing for MMD through his own charity, but I think, Gregor, you're going to be involved in a few things with Doddy down the line, aren't you? You've got a few things lined up to try and help him in his cause. Yeah, well,
Doddy's a very good friend. He's a teammate for a number of years. He was someone that you just love being in his company, and what he's doing to raise awareness and funds for M&D research, and to help those people currently suffering with M&D is amazing. It truly is amazing. I think they've already distributed over £3 million, and Doddy is driving that while he himself is suffering from M&D, and I can only imagine how tough that is to get up every day and go out there and be the person he's always been, and raise more funds. So yeah, I'm doing something the day before we leave for Japan. It's called the Doddy Border Golf Challenge. So I'm going to play one hole of every golf course in the borders. There's 21 golf courses. So the link with another sport, golf, who have also came on board and raised money for Doddy throughout the year. The link with the Borders, where Doddy and I are both from. Really hope that people listening to this podcast can get behind in any way and donate money to what was such a worthy cause for a tremendous person like Doddy.
You guys will know Doddy as well from your time around the rugby world, but just on Doddy, you know, how much fun is it to work with him, maybe off the pitch, but also what's your memories of him on the pitch?
I think Gregor summed it up there. Like to carry on and just be the man he is, with everything that's going on, it's been incredible. I mean, it's truly inspiring now when you either see him speak or see him at events, because the energy he brings to every single room is incredible. And yeah, we've all worked very closely over the last few years, and it would have been really easy for Doddy to close the door on the world with everything that's challenging him, but he didn't. Embraced it. Over £3 million already distributed. It's an incredible figure, but not just the money, the awareness as well. The awareness around a disease that he ultimately feels there is a cure out there for, or there's an ability to find that cure. Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. He grew up as my rugby hero. He showed that you could be 6'8" and reasonably skinny and do well, which helped me and inspired me. I played against him a few times. A few stories when he bloodied my nose in the first game. It was Melrose versus Stirling County, and he chucked an elbow at me in a line. And that day he went from my hero to the guy I was chasing around for the next 79 minutes. But yeah, just an incredible man.
Get him on chasing around.
Running away. Yeah. I got footage of that game. Running away.
Now, just to add to that as well, like a fierce competitor, Doddy. Like Gregor will know really well. Is like even training against him, playing with him, playing against him. He was, for all his happy-go-lucky, he was a fierce competitor, real tough egg, and I'll found that out pretty quickly there, right enough.
Knows, yeah.
But yeah, like sometimes now with his persona and how positive he is, he was a determined, quality rugby player, brilliant rugby player, but really tough as well, really hard. That sometimes you know, for people who don't remember him playing, could easily forget or not maybe associate with how fierce a guy he was.
I think it also shows how special our sport is. See, when you've seen the way the rugby community, the wider rugby community as well, not just his close friends, although I know like Gary Armstrong, Jill Douglas have been doing an enormous amount, but the wider world rugby community has really got behind what he's doing. I think that says an awful lot about rugby.
His 2 tries on the 11th of June 95 in the quarter final ended up New Zealand 48, Scotland 30. So Doddy had 2 tries, Scott Hastings, and then Gav 3 conversions, 3 penalties. Point scores, not bad New Zealand team. Point score, Walter Little scored 2, John Lomu, Mertens, Frank Bunce, Sean Fitzpatrick, and Mertens kicked 6 conversions and 2 penalties. So some decent names there.
He's the stat guy.
I was reading that wasn't just like
Jamie's normally got a book as well. He doesn't like the internet, he likes to use a book.
It hasn't travelled with us, unfortunately. So
attendance,
I'll fact check
attendance.
Here we go. Like have a pop with Loftus Versfeld, which is Pretoria, isn't it?
Yep.
In South Africa.
54,000.
54 from Jamie. Al?
40.
61.
28,000.
What?
Yeah. Referee Derek Bevan. There you go.
Right, I'm gonna ask you one more question, because I know you've got things to do, and we appreciate your time, but when you look at the whole squad you've got here in St Andrews, is there any players that you look at and you see a young Gregor Townsend?
That's a good question.
You've came up with that question as your last question. Well, I'm not answering it, so ask a better question about the squad.
We should do it. Do we see our young Gregor Townsend out there?
What I see with the squad is such a huge amount of quality, more than we've had before, because we've got almost everybody to select from. I think maybe 1 or 2 players are currently injured, so that hasn't happened before. Last year Six Nations, by the end of the Six Nations, we did have most of the players available, but now we've got all these quality players to work with, which has been great. And I love their attitudes. They're humble, hard working. They're easy to coach from our perspective as a coaching group. I don't know whether that's a Scottish trait or just that we're lucky with the group of players we have, but they put the work in, and it's been great to see them develop on the field but also off the field and build relationships with each other. And it will be very difficult to to finalise that 31, players have an opportunity in front of them come these 4 games. They're showing us repeatedly at training that they should be on the plane. Now they have to show us in games, and because there's so much competition, there'll be a few positions where we don't know yet. We hope that this player plays really well and he's hitting form at the right time. But if the guy competing for that position does that, then he might go to Japan.
How tough a job is it, Gregor, going to be to tell the guys to miss out? I mean, it's going to be a big moment in their careers potentially. Is that something you'll do yourself?
Yes, and it's part of the roles as a head coach, that you have to do that, and you have to explain the reasons why. It is tough when you've gone through a World Cup camp and you've put a lot of work in and you do miss out. But the players realise that there's going to be 13 players will miss out from this squad. We will reduce numbers over the next couple of weeks. And I believe that they realise that there's a lot of quality competing for the position with them. But it will be tough. There is always a potential that if you miss out in this selection, you'll come back in at a later date. I think on average 6 or 7 players tend to get called up during a World Cup campaign. So your dreams of going to World Cup might still be there, just coming at a later stage. So you've got to keep working hard if that opportunity does come around.
Gregor, you mentioned earlier on the warm-up games, and Mossy and I, you talked about what those games are like as players and coaches, but looking at the crowds, they're going to be really strong crowds. France on course for a sellout, Georgia really strong for a Friday night game. How much of a boost does that give you, and to think that for a Friday night game against Georgia to be really strong? I think close to 40,000 tickets sold already.
It's amazing. I shouldn't be surprised, given that the numbers of supporters that have came over the last couple of seasons to our games, but it still surprises me when we're going for sellouts and World Cup warm-up games. It gives the players a huge boost to know that the Scottish public are behind them. It gives them a huge boost when they're playing the game to hear that noise through the anthems and through the games. I remind our players that they are currently living through special times. This is unusual that we're playing in sellouts, in front of sellouts. So now a huge thank you to the supporters who are coming along to watch us play on a regular basis. There is a real connection, I believe, between our supporters and our players. You see that the public session we had a couple of weeks ago at BT Murrayfield, the players staying for an hour signing autographs at the end. They enjoy the fact that the supporters are behind them, that the Scottish public's behind them, and how amazing it would be if we could continue this run and sell out another 2 games in the summer. It'd be a brilliant way to send off the team as well, as we leave to Japan just a couple of days after that Friday night game against Georgia.
Gregor, thank you very much for your time. It's been brilliant chatting to you, and best of luck for the rest of pre-season.
Thank you.
That was interesting, Mossy, wasn't it? Did Gregor, he coach you much?
Yeah. Obviously played alongside him for a good number of years, and then his first kind of coaching involvement was with Edinburgh. When he was working with Wind Scotland Foundation, he used to come in on a Tuesday, 1 day a week, to do work with Andy Robinson and Rob Moffat at Edinburgh. It was excellent. And then from there he graduated to the assistant coach with Scotland. So went to World Cup with him in 2011 as assistant coach, and I was still playing as the due. And then worked alongside him since I retired with the skills coaching at Glasgow and Scotland as well. So you could have sat and listened to that for a lot longer. We could have asked a few more questions, but you just get that. It's a brilliant insight into how detailed and knowledgeable he is about every facet of his players, his management, the structure, the global game, the whole thing. I
think that's the thing that stands out for me. I worked with him, as you say, when he was Scotland assistant coach, but then in his first head coach role when he came into Glasgow Warriors, and it's the detail that he brings, detail on almost everything. To look at things that ordinarily people might say, well, it'll just be okay. No, Gregor wants to make sure that it's better than okay, and you can see he's putting that detail into this World Cup camp.
And that's one of the massive challenges of being a head coach, I believe, is you have to delegate responsibility to your assistant coaches in their specialist areas. So whether it's forwards or defence or scrum or line out or attack, whatever it is. But then quite a lot of head coaches, I think, delegate that and then just leave their assistants to get on with it. Whereas Gregor, I think, has a detailed knowledge of every single facet of the game that he'll challenge all the assistant coaches as to why they want to play that way or do this strategy or whatever facet of the game it is. To have that knowledge and the overarching kind of experience to coordinate that group and head up the whole team is pretty unique, I think.
When he talked about his experience, you asked him the question about World Cups. We talked about the experiences he'd had, not just as a spectator but as a player and as an assistant coach when it didn't go the way that we would have wanted it to go. There's a depth of knowledge there that not many other coaches will be able to bring.
Yeah, I think it's quite funny. I was going to ask you actually in the moment, because a lot of my immediate memories of Rugby World Cups are from watching as well, like rather than being involved as a player. And I think his were quite similar, really. I don't know, like you've obviously played in World Cups, but are you the same? Have we discovered something here that we're ultimately just fans rather than kind of people that get lucky enough to be involved in it?
2015 stands out for me. It was just after I'd finished playing rugby, and I was there for the first time. All the games I was working at, I was there as a spectator. You know, the game randomly that stands out in my memory was Wales versus South Africa.
Oh, at Twickenham.
Yeah, at Twickenham, and because it was a brutal game of rugby, but because I was there, and there was no skin in the game for me. I was just there to enjoy it and to watch it. It was the first time. It was the first time in many years, because all the way through in playing games, you're always watching games and you've got a little bit of an eye on, could we meet these people or what are they doing? Well, that was just sit down and watch and enjoy rugby.
I remember being at that game. That was the day before the Scotland-Australia quarter final. We're obviously down at Twickenham for the game the following day, and I managed to get to that game. And I was just astounded at the bravery of the Welsh lads, because it was probably still one of the most physical games I've ever seen, and they just kept getting up and getting up and getting up, and they were getting bashed rotten by the South Africans. And then the kind of icing on the cake for me was, like, after all the physicality, I mean, it was unbelievable. Almond Jones that day just kept going and kept going and kept, it was unbelievable. But the determining factor that day was a brilliant piece of skill, a back-handed pass out the back door from the Springbok number 8, I think it was Dwayne Vermeulen, to set up Fury Dupree for the try in the corner. I thought all the physicality and all the combat, it was one brilliant piece of guile that separated the teams. And I thought, it's still that beauty about rugby that it isn't all about the power and the physicality. The determining factor was just an amazing piece of the guile and skill from one of the biggest players in the field. Yeah.
So to answer your question, spectating, either sitting in the crowd or sitting on the sofa and watching a game, those are probably because games almost merge into one. That sounds wrong. You never take it for granted, but you're so focused on outcomes, not the outcome, but outcomes every single minute of the game, that you maybe get lost in it at times.
You get to enjoy it as a spectator probably more than as a player, don't you?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Your work, you enjoy and you love what you do, but there's a responsibility attached to that. Whereas if you're spectating, you can just, as you say, kick back, put the feet up and enjoy every minute. And
when you look at this World Cup from a spectator's point of view, it's incredibly exciting. Scotland are playing a great brand of rugby. The pool is a good combination of being difficult, but at the same time games that we
spoke about that with Gregor. We spoke about that with Gregor, didn't we? That how dangerous effectively every fixture is in world rugby at the moment, because teams now with coaches travelling, from New Zealand and Australia and Scotland and England and Wales, and travelling to the Pacific nations and Japan and USA, and everybody pretty much is not exactly the same on a level playing field of fitness, but will all be supremely fit, pushed within millimetres of just the maximal size they can be and fitness it can be, because of the cross-reference and the knowledge that's spread across the rugby world. So that, I think, that having almost a level playing field in terms of fitness and strength and conditioning narrows the game. So it does then become about who can make the best decisions under pressure when you're up against it, keeping a clear head, similar to that Dwayne Vermeulen pass out the back door. It's dangerous because these teams are all fit, they're all strong, they all have a wonderful ability to deliver on the big occasion, but the team that wins it will be the one that's most consistent, I think.
You look at the Fijians in particular and the success they had at the Olympics. Ben Ryan did an incredible job in there, and I wonder whether that now will be seen more at this World Cup than it's ever been. The fact that the Sevens is such a great platform. Now that's maybe slightly disrespectful to Sevens, but will we see that spill over, that professionalism that's been brought into Sevens into the 15s game?
Yeah, and then the point you made about the period that the players will get to spend together prior to the World Cup kicking off for a lot of the kind of Pacific nations is like gold dust, because most of the players will play either overseas or locally, so they're never together for long periods in the regular season. But that preparation time and that fitness we spoke about makes a real danger. But Sevens element may have an effect. It's quite funny. If you think of key World Cup moments, the kind of match-winning moments in the biggest games and the biggest stage probably comes down to drop goals or penalties.
Yeah.
You know, even the last World Cup, that 2015 final, Dan Carter dropped a goal, you know, towards the start of the second half that almost kind of cemented the kind of control they had, and that was a defining moment. And you think back to Wilkinson's, you think back to Yanni De Beer kicking 5 drop goals for South Africa, you think back to Stephen Larkham's long range one, Joel Stransky won the drop goal, and the penalty. It's, when you get right to the nitty gritty, it's fine margins. So maybe the exuberance of the Sevens players and the fast tempo gets you into position to, I don't know, just to really set up a winning moment that's going to be a big moment, be that a try, conversion, drop goal, whatever.
Whatever we're going to see, we're going to have some
We'll
exciting times.
We'll find out.
It's going to be a good few months ahead as far as rugby's concerned.
A huge thanks to Gregor again, Noe, for that insight. Really good.
Great to get so much time with him as well. He's got some big decisions to make in the build up to that World Cup, and then some challenging but exciting times ahead.